contract under our laws. You have to accept this. And what that caused in some cases was for people to say like, oh, this isn't the right form of the thing that I want. This isn't the specific, like gold is legal tender. You didn't bring me gold, or cash is legal tender. You didn't bring me cash. You try to send me a bank transfer. That's not good enough. Under the law, they would have the right to say this is a breach of contract. We're going to remedy from there. That's just one of the side effects of legal tender laws, right? And if you got rid of them, you would open the door to Bitcoin or whatever anybody else wanted to use.
Great. Lisa, you want to?
Well, I'm curious. I just wanted to ask Greg really quick, because the Constitution states that that silver is constitutional money.
I think I actually got it wrong.
Only gold.
I think I got it wrong. I think it was silver. I think you're right. Okay. It was silver, because there's this apocryphal story that I vaguely remember in the fog of more than 10 years ago. Let's not try to figure out how far back that was, but in law school, right, where they explained legal tender laws by saying a bank would lend a prospector money to go mine some gold, and they'd try to bring in gold, but they hadn't changed it for silver.
I see.
And the bank would say, nope, you're late for your payment because this isn't legal tender.
So they would refuse.
We're going to foreclose on your mine that you just found. Thanks for proving that there's gold in there. Right.
I really think you're onto something, Greg, because actually, like in January, I think banks are able to, they have that Basel system and all that of how they can put different things on their balance sheet, how they can, assess their value. And they're all in a lot of trouble right now with all of their commercial loans and all of that. And so they're starting January, they can put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And so I wonder if that's part of that move away from gold. It seems like we're already in this move. So yeah, El Salvador did a lot of things right. I think they really looked out for their community. When you look at the stories, the videos, it opened the free market, which allowed people to, everyone to have access to the free market. There wasn't the qualified investor issues,
right,
where some people get to play the game and others don't. It was a true free market. Small businesses are thriving. The other thing they're doing is, like, because it's a free market, they're embracing people that are coming in, because more is more together. So
and I think we got to use and the reason I said what I said is we got to use the term free market with an asterisk, right? Because it's a free market in everything but legal tender currency. They're not going to allow people to compete for that outside of a prescription by law. It's either the dollars they accept, I think they accept US dollars as well, or Bitcoin, but it's not ETH, it's not Litecoin, it's not anything else.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Right. Officially, under the law, right? That's the trick of it. It's not that people don't do it in practice, because people take, for instance, bank transfers instead of cash payments all the time. And that's technically not a legal tender of fiat dollars, right? Legal tender of fiat dollars is the transfer of the cash, the notes. That's something the banks take care of in the background, but a lot of people take a payment that they're not really required to take.
Think about a PayPal or a Cash App, then is not legal tender by definition.
Well, they get a license as a payment processor. So I guess that's how they.
But it doesn't change the law.
Right. Technically, you can still be forced to, if you're writing a contract under the law of the land there, accept Bitcoin as payment, but not be required to accept ETH as payment, for example, or anything else you like Doge, right? You may, but you're not required. And by allowing one to have required status, you're creating a monopoly market in a particular currency.
That's true.
I agree with both of y'all. But I think one of the biggest things that everyone misses is the real reality or realness. I don't know what they did. I had a friend that I wanted to have on the show today. He's in Australia, and in Australia it's 3 a.m. So they were like, "No, mate, it'd be 3 a.m." But he's from the Cook Islands, and
cool.
I didn't know anything about the Cook Islands, until I met him, and then I looked, found out a lot about them. They're because he was a smart ass, and I was talking about how Texas is so big, and that most of all of Europe can fit inside of Texas. Um, just like to wrap your head around. Um, and he said, "Well, the Cook Islands they're bigger than Texas," and I was like, "What? No, they're not. There they are." And he was with the ocean involved in the islands and all, and how spread out it is. It is bigger than Texas. Um, but he really, really wants and has wanted to have the Cook Islands convert over to their own cryptocurrency and to make that legal tender and
Mhm.
become a nation state that it's cryptocurrency. So if any countries want to work with them, or um, and he's talked to the prime minister about this, and it's the biggest thing that he was always told, and is that they're a poor country and they have very bad internet because they're island system. It's it's really not the best internet, even in the resorts, which the whole all of them are resorts. Either got it's kind of like Hawaii, but not as upscale. Um, you either got like a original islander, the Aboriginal people, and then just super nice, rich. 90% of their income is tourism. Um, that's what the whole country's economy is based on. Um, but
Sorry, guys.
El Salvador is a South American country. It's not like a Western cutting edge technology company or country. And
You
one
can
of the
call it
one of
what
the
it is.
biggest things was like a lot of
Frozen. I can't
like
remember
little
your
roadside, uh, you know, uh, not stores, but little roadside stands. There's how are we going to take Bitcoin? How is that going to happen? You know, I don't know how to run the matrix, in my business, and they showed that anyone could do that. El Salvador's, um, they they did set up how they would help any small business. So even like a little fruit stand on the side of the road, how they would have access. All you would need is a phone, and how easy it was to set up on the countryside on a country level. Um, so that got uh, a lot of traction with these really what we're talking about today is like really small or island nations, um, and the ability like Haiti and uh, you know when they were hit by the hurricanes and all that, they couldn't get ATMs to work. Um, but with Space Chain, you can look at that, or with Starlink, um, any of that, with just either one of those, they would have been able to get because they got aid, they got money, but people couldn't get it and transfer it and move it around to start paying for people and paying for food and getting work done because they had no a really shitty banking infrastructure because they were but if you kind of make it more digital, everything is so much quicker, easier, and unless there's like a sun flare or something like that, it's not going to affect you won't be destroyed or messed up with a natural disaster or something like that. It's a lot easier to get up and going. But that's the one thing I think that El Salvador did that nobody really talks about or if we're talking about small nations and like island nations, is they show them, hey, you can
Right.
do this.
And what it did right was plant a flag, right? It said, this is a thing we're doing to everybody in the world, and it pissed off a lot of the right people to be pissed off.
That's what I
But-
like about it. The first thing.
But at the
But-
same time, like if it were not for bimetallism, right, we wouldn't have never had legal tender laws to begin with, because the whole thing came from trying to set a ratio between gold and silver by fiat. And
And it showed. I mean, there's a lot of
it's like a
people
way to say the government controls Bitcoin, which is silly.
there's a lot of people that they really they can kind of see it now as they're waking up, but like as soon as they did it, you know, the powers that be were like, hey, we're not going to give you these loans, and we're not going to do this, and no, you're not going to be able to play in their system. And they were like, that's the point, bro. That's why we're doing it. And that was a huge middle finger.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think if historians look back, it might be like that was the beginning of the end.
Well, how familiar are you guys with what the IMF does to control smaller nations?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Right? Like the kinds of things that they impose in return for, like, so they'll lend them a lot of money for like disaster relief, or some kind of thing will happen and they'll need to borrow money, right? And the loan comes due, and what the IMF says is, well, if you take on these policies that we're prescribing, or if you grant us this land, or if you box this land off under some international regime for conservation or whatever, right? If you let us control you, we'll write off the loan.
I was shocked to find out that the IMF pays Janet Yellen. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right that our Treasury, Secretary of Treasury gets paid by the IMF.
Though in
She's
a
a
way,
foreign
she's
agent?
kind of like the physical embodiment of it, right? Like if you had to
Yeah.
put like a poster up for like Uncle Sam, but for the IMF, it'd totally be her face.
Mhm.
That's not a compliment if she's watching.
I don't think she's watching that.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah,
they tried putting her on a poster, but you know, it didn't well.
Nobody bought any.
All the people working at the poster factory clawed their eyes out.
See, and that's what I think. That's what I think El Salvador did wrong. Okay, I feel like they needed more propaganda. This should have been a much bigger deal, and they should have been talking about how great everything is. Just put pictures
John?
of nothing but resorts. Be like, use Bitcoin, get resorts, easy.
You inadvertently raise a very good point.
I'm not joking. Like, I think like a lot of like, I think that's like the thing with like Bitcoin too and stuff like that. It's like we have to also use the tools that other people are using, right?
Yeah.
Marketing, it makes a difference.
Well, I mean, and they had all the pieces necessary to push back on that bogus narrative about Bitcoin being energy consumptive.
Yeah.
Right, because they compared it to the GDP of other nations instead of comparing it to the global monetary system of the dollar, right?
Or a
which
data
would
center.
would have been an apples to apples comparison.
Mm.
If you're talking about money systems, right? Then let's look at money systems. How much does it cost to run the U.S. dollar, right? Let's just talk about the carbon cost in terms of commutes from banks and bank branches across the United States, and you probably beat Bitcoin out in energy consumption right there alone.
And like I think there is a little bit of like a slow game, like, oh, the truth will come out, but I think it just takes a while, you know. It's gonna take a minute.
Well,
for the or it's never gonna happen.
Or
John,
we have to be
John's in New York.
proactive.
John, you know,
about it.
banks in New
Gotta
York,
make it
they're like
happen.
cathedrals. You know, there's some huge, like, you know, it's historic banks with all the marble and the giant. It's almost. I lived in New Jersey. I grew up, and you know, I remember that as a kid. Like the banks were just so similar to churches as far as like opulence.
I think they also like to take old buildings and be like, oh, we're gonna keep all the history of it, right? And then the bank buys it and keeps all the history. It's probably some kind of tax write-off kind of thing too. And then they, you know, oh, we're gonna keep the history of it, and they put a giant chase symbol on the side of it, talking about how they
what other industry is part of like history. You know, it's elevating the bank to a like almost religious status, or almost a, historical. It's a little weird.
Yeah. And I'm sure they don't occupy every single floor of that building with bank, with only bank stuff. I'm sure there's other businesses and stuff
Well,
there. Like the H&M building isn't just H&M, I'm sure.
okay. Check this out. I'm gonna screen share real fast, and you guys are gonna have some fun with me here, because this is just a good thought experiment to get the point nice and home.
I can do it.
Ready? Here we go. This is Bank of America branches near me only.
You got a
Guys
screen
can
share
see it?
though. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Check this out. This is just near me. If I zoom in, you actually see a fun phenomenon where, like, the more you zoom in, the more it shows,
Yeah.
right? And if I zoom out and look at, like, the United States, well, if it's gonna let me, it won't. But if we zoom into, like, Dallas, let's see what Dallas looks like. Right?
Can't view. No, that's just gonna make the map bigger.
Include ATMs though. That might include ATMs.
No, maybe. This is for branches, it said, but
Oh, okay.
looks like I've got to relocalize the search. But point made, right? Like, just one bank in my Bank of America in my area has like 15 branches nearby. Right? I can
It's like
drive
churches
15
on
minutes in
every
any
corner of
direction and
Oklahoma.
find one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was actually pitched the other day in a class I was in. It was like, what if we made a movie or a TV show about what banks are like now? Because nobody uses them. Nobody's
Well,
basically going.
how
in
many
those
tellers
branches
work there?
anymore.
That
And
freaks
how many
me out.
managers and how many security guards and how many people go through the drive-through? Think about all of the gasoline burning as you go through that.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you get into the fun of, like, how many coins do they deliver from the mint system every year, and how many smelters are they operating? Like, they don't have to run smelters to do Bitcoin.
My bank was one of the first banks to be like that. It was like 10 years ago. I went in there and I had a big check, and I went in because it was USAA, and I had always been with I had the bank I'd always been with was Educators Credit Union, and they never I had to go to Waco, which is where the head branch is, the big building with all the marble and all. And I walk in and they had signs everywhere that they apologize that they may have to ask for your ID sometimes because we can't remember everyone's face. Now it's at the main huge branch in Waco. At every town, I've never had to show ID. You just walk in and you can do whatever you want, and it's like a really small town, thing. But so I switched to USAA, and I went into the bank, and I used to be a financial advisor, and I thought about going to work for them in this new bank building, super like modern looking in our town. It was very, very weird looking at a place. As the financial advisor there, because I liked it. I was part of the military market. But I went in there and I was like, hey, I want to deposit this check, but I want to get so much money. And they're like, okay, you can go over to the ATM. And I was like, well, just can't you give me the money? No. I was like, we don't have any money. I'm like, you're a teller. It's like, yeah, they really are. They're just for show. They ended up closing the bank like 6 months later because they didn't have any money, any money inside the bank. They literally, like, the trucks come and put the money in the ATMs. The ATMs at the ass. They're like 4 ATMs inside the building and like 6 or 8 outside the building.
So I have a little challenge for you
Like,
guys.
no money, and that blew my mind that they were a bank with no money and no control over the money that they had in the ATMs.
Look at all your Federal Reserve notes and see if you can find one more current than 2017. When you get a minute.
I'm looking at all my Federal Reserve notes right now.
Because you don't have any.
I thought of that the other day.
There's not any. None have been printed since
cash
2017.
in so long.
Mhm.
I haven't had any money, any cash at all. Like for Christmas, to get money, I have to have my like tell my son when he goes to work, hey, pull like $200 out or $500 or whatever, and then that's what I'll give away. But I haven't had any cash or bought anything with cash or used anything this year at least. But I can't remember the last time I used cash for anything or had cash, even change.
No, I do.
People don't
I do
trust.
keep coins around because I found this AI that's fun to check the values of them on. So I run through the value checker before I dispense with them.
It's an app, an AI app.
Yeah, it's like an AI that evaluates your coins for both current market value and quality at that value.
I always see on Twitter. I would see that pop up to get the app, or the one you can like any plant. You can scan it and it'll tell you what it is.
Well, I have an old 1857 penny, and I had no idea how much it was worth.
Well, Bix talks about, during the Great Infection, they shut down mid-year and retooled all the mints, and they put a little flat spot on the silver eagles. And he talks about that could be a way that you could scan that flat spot, because every single coin it's kind of like a fingerprint. It has its own like DNA makeup or metal makeup, and you could put that print or that makeup, that fingerprint of that coin keep the coin in a safe and spend your coins or even fractionalize those coins through crypto. So maybe that's the future.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. You would have probably an NFT intermediary between the individual coin and the fractionalization of it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of fun.
Which would infringe on Reggie's patents. So yeah.
All right.
You hit on something interesting there, which I want to show you. This is a 10-ounce bar of silver.
Neat.
5-ounce bar of silver here, right? On the back.
Are we bragging about our silver?
Card is a scan.
Really?
Yeah. So you scan all the new silver is coming with this scan. What does it say? Scan NFC.
So they have a near field. So that's interesting too, because that's only mildly alarming to me, because NFC computers can be pretty sophisticated in ways that you don't expect.
Well, that goes with
makes your physical money a lot more traceable.
That's a good thing, or could be a good thing, though. Like that goes with also during the Great Infection. If you go to my channel and look at videos, there is a video that I did of an interview with a guy, because they put in ITMs actually all over the nation, but my bank was one of the first ones to put them in. And there is a coin deposit and dispenser on it. And so all of that is very possible.
The unbearable liberty of bearer bonds, man. They're unbearably light.
Goldbacks. You know what goldbacks are?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
They're
we're talking gold certificates, right?
Yeah, they're like you said, bearer bond. It's like a plastic dollar, and it's very pretty. It's like very artful, which is something else. Which is you watch the Tucker Carlson Theo Vaughn interview. It's one of the best things I've ever watched. It's like 2.5 hours I love Theo Vaughn so much, and him and Tucker Carlson it was amazing to watch.
Pretty cool.
But Tucker Carlson has said something that it was I talk about, like when someone says something casual and it blows your mind. He said that America died. Everything, like if you go back to the point of when it all changed, was the day that they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, because that made the elites think we're gods. We have, we're so far advanced. We have more power than that we could wield. Nothing can stand against what our will is.
At a minimum, that was at least when they felt like they could be public about that feeling.
Yeah. And but he talks about how since that time, everything is like we're talking about. Just nothing is beautiful. No architecture is beautiful. There's no one creates anything that's not just meant to last, but no one creates anything that's just for aesthetic to like please people when they look at it.
Insane.
And
Nonsense. It's nonsense on its face.
you
Pun
should
intended.
you should check out the interview. It was really good.
Yeah, I absolutely have to check that out. It's cool. Granted, a lot of the folks who make that argument dislike the kind of architecture I like, because I'm a big fan of like Le Corbusier and the whole early modern thing. Like, grew up in a house like that. But
I didn't really think about it, but he shows this one thing. He talks about how England was a colonizer, how they thought that they were better than the Indian people, but they still built just about the railway station in Mumbai, and it's like Buckingham Palace.
right.
And they built it for their subjects. They built it for here's servants, here's Indian people, here's a train station, and it's like amazing. And he's like,
right, but they also, the Brits also have to be a little bit humble about it too, if they're being long view of history about it, right? Like, because not everybody had the benefit of Roman edifice all around them for inspiration.
And he talks about how Roman stuff is still here.
Yeah.
But like if you go to Detroit, stuff that's built like 20 years ago is falling apart. The goldbacks they're gorgeous, but they're legal tender. It's actually kind of interesting. Utah, a lot of states, they're considered legal tender, and they're this plastic dollar. Which my dog actually chewed some up, which is ridiculous. But they have the amount of they're supposed to, and I always wondered, and I watched a video last week about it, but they're supposed to have the amount of gold in the face value. So if you have a $50 gold back, you should have at least $50 worth of gold in it. And this YouTuber, he got $500 worth, 10 50s. He set them on fire, smelted them, and he ended up with a little gold bar, which was
interesting. Is if the certificates were for a specific ounce weight of gold instead. See, sort of like the way ETH is, and or Bitcoin, where it's not so much $5 worth of Bitcoin as it is, 0.00002 Bitcoin or whatever.
I thought it was that because I'm like, gold fluctuates. How do you know it's worth is my $50? But it's whenever it's issued. Right. So the stuff that's made today, it's got to have so much gold in it.
Right. Price goes down. You get more physical gold if you redeem your certificate, and if the price goes up, you get less. But but it's still $50 worth one way or the other.
But then you're looking. See, that's the thing. That's buying gold. If you. Right. But so this goldback was supposed to. It was when they came with the idea. I think it was supposed to. Because people think that dollars and fiat money is always been money, and it hasn't been. It's literally an experiment.
Dude, and it changes constantly in value.
It's easier for people to wrap their heads around it, and it's something physical. So it was a neat idea, but they're also, when you buy them, they're more than their face value, because they're a novelty. I think, but they are legal tender in I think 7 states or 9 states, Utah, Nevada, a couple others, which I guess are heavy mining states.
So what we've learned today is that you should burn your money, or you can, if you don't want to burn it, send it to me. I'll happily burn it for you. Let's go on to the next question here. Also, I Googled it, and it looked like in the Constitution, it says redeemable in gold or silver. So it looked like both of them.
Or send it to the KLF.
Originally, it was so much. It was a peso worth of silver, which is point whatever 3. I can't remember the exact amount, but.
All right,
nobody got about burning
good old days.
The KLF. Anybody? Nobody.
I don't know what you're talking about.
KLF. I know you wouldn't.
KLF. That sounds really familiar, but it's blanking me right now.
They were they were
KLF is gonna rock you.
My God, you shocked me so many times, Lisa. Yes, the KLF is going to rock you. They burnt 1 million pounds. Like as soon as they became famous, their record company gave them a million pounds.
Oh, that's right.
Flew out to an island and they burnt the money, and they said, "We're not going to release a second album until there's world peace."
Duh.
They're still sitting on that island.
They,
Well, they could have gotten off the island when Trump was in.
Well, speaking of their island, let's go on to the next question. The IMF or World Bank would cancel an island if it did this. An island in the South Pacific or Indian Ocean tried to do this, and the IMF threatened them until they dropped the idea of adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. Question from I Am for I Am. If you were president, prime minister, king, overruler, court jester, or any of those other things of a small nation state, how would you fight against the IMF and replace your fiat with a cryptocurrency? Also, what would the characteristics or attributes of your crypto?
Hey, John, thanks for watching.
Love your
I this goes along with what I said. I think El Salvador was such a Goldilocks country. They're big enough to stand up to the IMF, and I think they're big enough to show the corruption, to where the IMF didn't really want to fight them and go public. Now I remember when a lot of islands were talking about it because it made so much sense years ago, and it was squashed. Because they are so dependent on the system. But I think like everything else, there's power in numbers, there's power in unity. You can look at BRICS nations and what they're doing now. I'm seeing little African nations stand up at these meetings and basically like taunt and make fun of France and other countries, and they threaten them like, "Yeah, we're in the new BRICS nation, meeting or convention like next month, and we'll bring that up." So I think they should unite into some kind of coalition to be able to support each other, or kind of just. We're at the point now where it's a fight. They ignore us, they laugh at us, they fight us, and then you win. And for years and years, everyone's like, "It's the future, everything's great." I'm like, there's a fight stage, man. There's a fight stage. There's going to be a fight stage,
and Sean, in this case, like the fight stage blends with the laugh at you stage because they're trying to laugh at us as a weapon.
Yeah, I think we're moving into where it's no more laughing. It's like definitely a fight. It's not. It's like an out and out fight. Like these countries tried and they got strong armed. So I think that's the stage we're at, and I think that there has to be some kind of unity or support structure for smaller nations to do that.
There is a right answer, I think, to this one too. It dovetails with what I said earlier.
What?
Drop all the legal tender laws and also restructure your tax so that it's all consumption tax, and make sure that your smart contracts are multi-protocol for tax collection. Maybe have an L2 chain for internal reconciliation of your government budgets.
But when it comes to in reality, though, a lot of these, especially the small island nations, they are complete subjects to some nation. Cook Islands,
right?
They are a protectorate of New Zealand. So if New Zealand pressures them in any way,
right, what are they going to do though?
There's literally nothing they could do. That we're not going to support you.
At what point are they going to realize that they're going to either have to send in the troops or let it go? Right.
But see, if New Zealand basically says we're no longer going to protect you, and you're in that area of the world, someone will move in. China will We'll annex.
Not necessarily. There's the example of sort of like the free cities, right? The free cities example, where if you become accepting of any type of financial transaction, like the early Bahamas, right? Before the U.S. got their hooks in, and you can just get away with whatever there if you registered a business because they just didn't even have anybody trying to regulate it, right? If you became basically a hive of scum and villainy for anybody who wanted to transact and just said whatever goes goes, we're not going to organize it. We just have a requirement that anything that you can sell by smart contract has to also send something to this wallet when it does so. Otherwise, your smart contracts are out of compliance with our code, right? That would be the only needed enforcement, and you ditch the legal tender laws altogether. Allow people to continue to transact in cash if they want to, right? But facilitate the adoption of crypto broadly across all the chains by just making it easy for people to do it that way. You have to trust all of the people that you serve, but there's not much that a foreign sort of a foreign ruler of your or foreign controller of your government can do if what your government says is actually we're just getting out of the business of this. The only thing we're doing is turning off laws. We're not making any new rules. We're just not going to enforce anything that says how people have to spend money or what kind of money they can use.
I guess that's where it goes to similar to what El Salvador did. It was their citizens exchanging with each other in Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. It wasn't necessarily that El Salvador was exchanging Bitcoin with other countries. So if you close your borders and tell the IMF to pound sand, then your people, but small nations, I guess, do a lot of trading, I would think, with other countries for resources. I may be way off on
or
that.
Or through another country as a hub, like the Cook Islands, everything would go through.
Right. You don't need military force, though, if all the pirates want to bank in your city.
I don't know. You might need some military force to keep the pirates from taking
right.
the city.
Bank security, but you don't have to worry about that with crypto, right?
Yeah.
There's no way to brute force your way into somebody's private key.
But you could just kill all the people that want to that are advocating for it.
So you won't hear from them, but you can't take their tokens after they're dead for sure.
So what I think they should do is I think we should just open up the biggest Dave and Buster's on an island, and everybody's allowed to buy Dave and Buster's tokens with crypto.
Dave and Buster's, that would be a good one.
And then you slowly, you know what? We're just going to streamline this and get rid of the Dave and Buster's tokens.
Venezuela is the perfect example, actually, because everybody there uses some form of decentralized crypto, even though the government tried to force people not to and tried to force them to use the Bolivar token or whatever, right?
Interesting.
They're a small nation that de facto adopted Bitcoin because they couldn't stop people.
Well, what about how Venezuela, they wanted to start the petrol, dollar.
Oh yeah, that was what the government was trying to do. That was their CBDC.
Yeah, well, they were basically they were talking about crypto in a to the normies. The normies were seeing how it was a way to move around the government system,
mm-hmm.
and their sanctions, and it was just red flags. They crushed it. They went after them. It's like, people don't need to know that how the system works. Then or ways around the system. That is just no.
Right, but they got. I mean, you can still see volume there, right? Like they ran into the Princess Leia problem or the Grand Moff Tarkin problem, depending on which side you want to frame it from. Right? They couldn't crush it out of existence. The tighter they squeezed, the more slipped through their fingers.
I knew that was coming.
So I guess like another part of this question too is asking like what crypto or what would you do for your currency at these places? And then one answer that we got right, Greg, was like, we would just get rid of any currency rules, and then you can kind of use whatever you want.
And maybe the only rules that you would put up would be rules around requiring open source licenses and open source development around anything that the state deploys. That might be a good way to keep anything from getting too hinky, I guess.
So essentially, like it sounds like you want to stay away from having anything that's like state run or
centralized entity run at all. You wouldn't want a company doing it any more than you would want a government doing it.
Well, so you wouldn't even want to create your own currency for your island. You'd be like, nope, we're just going to take whatever you got. We'll figure it out.
I would want something monopoly resistant.
Yeah. Interesting. Anybody else, like, does that sound right to you? Or would you be like, you know what, we're going to create our own coin, and just to make sure that we always have something that's centralized or like at least standardized for some people?
Not on my island.
Hey. All right. We've got a whole bunch of Austrians in here. This is badass.
See, I don't know. I feel like you would be missing out on the opportunity to come up with a really cool name for a coin, and also like and to show people how cool it is. Like, you know, I feel like you got a whole propaganda thing that you could do here. At least come up with a meme.
Merchandising.
Yeah.
Now you could maybe sponsor hackathons to get locals to try to come up with one on their own.
That would be cool. I think you need some kind of trash coin at least for merch, for something, you know. You need some kind of Disney World kind of Six Flags place to go and for everybody to get excited about what you're doing there.
Well, there's always Embiggen. People can use that one. No, we're not using it for anything anymore.
Embiggen?
Early on in the open relay days before Rivet, we made a token called Embiggen. The cache tag is MBGN. You can still see the graphic that I designed on Etherscan if you go over there. The fun of this coin was that it was hyperinflationary, but it inflated uniformly. There was no possible way to have a Cantillon effect, because every 10 minutes the supply increased unilaterally across all token holders, proportionally to how much they own. Everyone grew at 10% all the time, no matter what. It was a joke, right? Like, we did that to avoid having a token that could be valued by the SEC as valuable, right? We created it to be hyperinflationary on purpose, but it's still around, man. You can't get rid of it, because by the time you've sent some, you've generated some. So it will proliferate across wallets, and residual amounts will grow back to larger amounts over time.
It sounds like a fungus infection or something.
Kind of, yeah, pretty much.
You can never get rid of this coin. It's the herpes of cryptocurrencies.
You know, you say Embiggen, it made me think of The Simpsons.
It's where it was themed off of, actually.
Yeah, from that. But you know, they crusty dollars. And like, you know, you said Six Flags. I thought that's where you were going with what you were saying. Disney dollars, Six Flag dollars. They like all these, like almost, you know, small country size like theme parks and companies. They did that a long time ago. They're like, here's our currency. You can spend it at all the shops in our you know, in our world. And Homer Simpson's like, what's the difference between this and regular money? Oh, this is fun. He's like, here you go. And then, you know, there's like all the stores say, you know, take $50.
Yep.
Well, it's like Cole's Cash. That's what China did to be able to programmable money so that they could stimulate their economy. So they put like a date on it, which that's the threat of the CBDC. That's what everybody's afraid of, you know, all of that. That's why free markets are so important. And it's important not to have that centralized money system.
Yep, absolutely.
I think you can push people.
And there's like, I think there's a strong case for competing currencies, right? Not just new F.A. Hayek, right? He wrote about a competitive landscape for currencies that was, ideally the way to get to one that regulated itself well enough that you didn't have to worry about anybody intervening in it ever, right? A sole monopoly on currency is what creates problems, because monopolies that are unchallenged ultimately lead to corruption.
Well, I think that if you push people hard enough, then they'll just walk away. I mean, if the CBDCs this is going to expire at this time, or there's total control, you're like, screw it. I've already seen people going to the barter system a lot, like for real estate and things like that. They're like, well,
Yeah.
cash,
Well,
gold.
there's something to that too, right?
Combination, crypto. A lot of them are even taking crypto. Like they say, a combination of them. So you can even pay for things with like a basket of, I just little things I've noticed in, different industries. They're kind of
Well, it always made me wonder, like,
town. Fiat's not the only game in town. A lot more.
like for every chicken that's actually a chicken, right? It has two legs, two wings, right? So if you made chicken coin, would the exchange rate be reasonably fixed at 2-to-1 with leg coin? I mean, barter would make sense if you hyper tokenized it. It would make more sense almost than having an exchange commodity. If you automated all of it, you would actually have an easier time of understanding what was going on in the economy if everything sort of was its own token, right? There's like the hyper tokenization of everything is sort of where I remember the early crypto stuff, kind of like the heady days of it.
Internet of Things.
There's going to be a token for everything.
Yeah.
That's how I imagined it was sort of like a return to barter with whatever the coin of the realm was for paying gas fees was going to be the way that you intermediated between them, but that was all going to be handled in the background.
Well, HSBC starts tokenizing gold next month out of their London bank, which infringes on Reggie's patents. Just mentioning it.
Yeah, I'm excited when we all have our own token and one John you can trade for other people's tokens. I think that'll be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, you found the embiggen.me site. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love the logo for it because it really does look like a Simpsons.
Thanks.
logo.
I drew that thing. Well, the fun part is if you go to embiggen.me and connect your Web3 wallet to it, and you actually have Embiggen in there, you get to see the dashboard I designed.
You can get fungus.
It tells you the countdown clock to how soon it's going to embiggen again. And
That's great.
Yep.
That's great.
The other fun thing about it too is there's a really ridiculous bouncy animation because I just learned about JavaScript animation. I was just like, I'm going to make this thing as elastic as it can go. So if you want to watch a graphic seesaw back and forth like it's on a rubber band that's been stretched out too much, get some embiggen.
See that? All right, so that's what I think you do. All right, for my island, I make it so that you can only make purchases and trades if you have embiggen in your wallet. So therefore, everybody's we're all passing. Like that's how you pass a check to make sure that you're like a real person is by having done at least one transaction with embiggen, and it's worth nothing. You just have to have it in your.
Well, I mean, and actually, it was worth nothing too. Cool story about embiggen. There's a technical innovation underneath it too. We created two tokens actually, embiggen and Notcoin, and all Notcoin was a thing that when you check to see what allowances people had and what their balance was, it just responded, yes, they have enough. So it was an infinite token that everybody had immediate access to as soon as they loaded up and connected the Web3 wallet to, we could basically intermediate it without having an intermediary using Notcoin. So you could have a one-sided exchange where we listed a whole bunch of orders for Notcoin and embiggen trading pairs on Open Relay. And when everybody showed up, they already had plenty of Notcoin. right? So they only had to pay the gas to get the embiggen sent to them. So it was a free airdrop that you didn't have to get pushed out to everybody. People self-served.
See, that's great. I think that's the kind of technology that you can find on John Island, full of fun and good times. And with that, we're about out of time. So we're gonna close up, and we're gonna be talking current events after this. There's some crazy stuff happening. We're all holding onto our Bitcoin so we can all become super rich and do other things with our time. And also, I don't know, there's some Clarity Act that came through. There's going to be FTC 2 now coming out, so that'll be fun. A lot of stuff to talk about in current events. Lisa, anything you'd like to plug or let people know about before we go?
Yeah, tonight on the Very Dow YouTube channel, we had our first roundtable discussion with a great IP attorney or patent lawyer, Jonathan Olson, and Bill Wagner from Uphold joined us with Reggie Middleton and discussed the recent IPR finding at the patent office and Coinbase's big loss. So please join us on the Very Dow channel tonight.
Check it out. Greg, anything you'd like to plug or let people know about?
There would be, if it was like 2 weeks from now, a really big thing. So I'm just going to hype it a little bit. We've been working on something special with some people we really like, and it's really exciting. And I can't tell you any details until after the announcement. So I would just say pay attention to Dev Connect. It's going to be largely streaming as well as in person. If you're in Turkey, go. But if you're not in Turkey, then watch it online and find out exactly what it is that I'm so hyped about right now. Because Rivet has been involved in something that we're really proud of with some people that we think are really cool, and it's going to surprise everybody.
That sounds great. I want to say that in a couple weeks, Turkey will be in me because it will be Thanksgiving. So
Yep.
Just be very clear about that.
Exactly.
So sorry. I had to. It was right there.
Many ways in this month to enjoy turkey.
Exactly. So stay tuned to find out more about turkey and all of your turkey needs. Sean asked me to share. He didn't, but I'm going to plug it anyway for him. Crypto Rednecks, right? His show. So check that out. Check out his YouTube channel. He also asked me to play this. Because he loves it so much whenever I do that. It's his favorite thing about this show. Nothing else. Greg, what was that?
Oh, Greg, you're muted.
It's more fun to just keep asking.
Jesus.
What was that?
It's that last vibrato on the violin that really nails it, right? Like
yeah. I played that myself.
Really?
Yeah. That's just a steel drum that I had, and I put some yo-yo string across it. It was very complicated.
Sounds like a Rube Goldberg machine of perfect sound effects.
That's who I am. I'm a Rube Goldberg machine. Great. So yeah, join us next week. Is there any more other shows today? Den.social call. I don't know if there's one today or not. There could be. If there is, find out.
Let me see.
Super Happy Dragon Lucky or whatever.
There's nothing on the calendar yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, you're free to go do whatever you want after current events. Stick around, listen to us talk about all the events that are currently happening. Also, next week's theme is Back to School, how blockchain changes education. Leave us a blockchain related question or not blockchain related question. I can answer questions about other things probably more thoroughly than blockchain on the thread. And don't forget to share this episode. The more you share, the more our hosts and topic contributors will get. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for joining us in the chat and being in there. I have been reading everything. I know we all have. So stick around and we'll be right back after this.
While nuclear weapons states can exert unlimited violence over even millions of individuals, strong cryptography means that a state, even by exercising unlimited violence, cannot violate the intent of individuals to keep secrets from them. Cryptography is the ultimate form of non-violent direct action.
Sell them every time, man. How long is Julian Assange going to be stuck in Belmarsh?
I don't know.
I don't know either. And it seems absurd. Like I thought they were getting close to a deal or something, but I feel like the deal is now just a delay tactic.
Probably. I'll make some phone calls and see what I can find out.
No, we seriously, like, if we're gonna send, like, military force over the Atlantic, it should probably be to break him out of Belmarsh. Honestly, that'd probably be the only morally legitimate thing.
Aren't we the ones that put him there?
Like, we did so through our vassal, the United Kingdom, but
Yeah.
which, by the way, UK, deal with that because you're acting like our vassal when you keep him in prison.
It's very vassal of them.
Yep. You were in our fiefdom. Kneel.
Anything else going on in current events that you guys are excited about or not excited about?
This weekend is Veterans Day. On Saturday, they are doing the official federal holiday on Friday here in America. So interesting to see what might happen on that Black Friday. I guess it's not technically Black Friday, but
I feel like Black Friday already started. I'm already getting ads for Black Friday deals, which is just insane to me, but also kind of nice because then you don't have to like run around on the day.
I personally think the whole holiday season is going to ultimately evolve into just like Black Friday month, and maybe Black Friday quarter is going to be the holiday of the future.
Well, I know, but the way the economy is right now, like, I'm shocked. I guess they're still pushing the, you don't have anything, but go ahead and spend anyway. The interest rate is insane. They, I just, it's incredible to me that anybody's buying anything right now. Aw, that's who was making all that noise.
Yep, he's a noisy fellow.
Yeah,
he's got a lot to say.
Yep. He just can't stand it when I'm not paying attention to him, or when other people, everybody around has to pay attention to him for him not to make noise like that.
I love it.
I'm the same way. It drives my wife insane. You should hear me yelping. She gets on a Zoom meeting. I'm yelping in the back. They're like, "What's going on?" It's like, my husband. Is he hurt? Nope. He's just needy.
Just really needy.
I am incredibly loyal, but you can never leave me.
I'm solo dog sitting right now. My better half is across several states, moving her mom to Kansas, actually. So she can be closer to us.
Nice.
But yeah, so I'm here with the dogs, and she's usually entertaining them during this time, which is why mostly you don't hear from them. But today they've been especially loud.
You're on your own.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm failing badly at it.
IAM says the Republican debates last night, which I didn't even watch. To me, it's just a real non-issue. Everybody's just Israel. Yeah. While America burns to the ground.
Well, I mean, and the funny thing to me is how the censorship machine is already starting to be flipped on its head by the the more traditional right. How many of the presidential candidates, or I guess Republican nominee candidates last night suggested that people ought to be silenced for speaking out against Israel or against the war.
Wow.
Or against the U.S. being involved in it, because they conflate them, right? Just like the Branch Covidians used to conflate people who didn't want vaccine mandates with people who didn't think vaccines were real. If you say, yes, it's a tragedy. Yes, Hamas is a terror organization. Yes, that sucks, but we shouldn't send people to fight there. That is being conflated on the other side now as basically saying, I love the terrorists, right?
If you're not with us, you're against us.
Right. And it's the same kind of language. And you can see how it would go if we don't learn from the anti-pattern we've created for ourselves, right? Because what will happen is the other people will get in power, and they'll use it to suppress people who are anti strong U.S. involvement in Gaza Strip, right? If there are people who are protesting boots on the ground there, they're going to be pro-Hamas, anti-authority, domestic extremists, right? To use the FBI's word for MAGA people. We are not learning from our mistake. Instead, we are doing the dumb thing and taking the weapons that they built to use against the people they oppressed in the last time around, and trying to turn them on the people who were using it before, like tit for tat, instead of let's stop using the tits and the tats because they're not helping anybody.
Well, isn't the lawsuit, or there's several lawsuits, I guess, in several different states about, the government using big tech to censor people, mostly the right or conservative voices. And I was seeing a lot of that kind of start to come out. I'm not sure where it is in each state, but what I thought was interesting on that is that they're mad at Facebook about it. Why aren't they mad at the government for using the tool that Facebook is for censoring?
Or for forcing the tool to be built through public-private partnersps with entities that they
haven't seen
created,
anything about them,
like the
about
Stanford
that.
Internet Observatory.
The stuff that I've seen that they're going after for is going against kids. That's it.
No, there's
It's
other.
like 45 states or something. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
and then there's the censorship against the
because
right.
the real perspective here is
Or
right
the
that there's
conservative.
tragedy on both sides of this, and cruelty on both sides of it, and violence on both sides of it that are they're not equatable in blame, but everybody has some blame for some bad acts going both directions. And they're not equatable on the same scale, but they're there.
Greg, as a lawyer, this is a legal thing. Can you get in trouble with the government if you're doing what the government? Isn't that the definition of entrapment? If Facebook's like brought before anything?
Well, the definition of entrapment is whatever you can give as a judge to say the definition of entrapment is, right?
It sounds like it. It's like
largely an argument over jury
government's
instructions.
going after me for doing what the government told me to do because it was wrong. But the government told me to do it. That's
right. I mean,
but that's why I'm saying, like, why aren't we the people pissed off at the government and holding them accountable instead of holding Facebook accountable?
We should be, but the people who are screaming at the top of their lungs all used to work for the CIA and the FBI, and most normies aren't going out and finding independent news. They're getting their news from probably Facebook. It's probably flogging itself in the obligatory way in order to not get canceled, right? So you can probably find a lot of anti-Facebook news on Facebook. I'm sure its competitors are happy to chime in and amplify, right? God knows that Elon is a hefty critic of Zuckerberg and loves to beat on him for free brownie points, right? He's an easy punching bag. But the really hard thing to do is to get people to look at this from a new perspective, right? Or maybe an old perspective. I'm afraid to post on anything but Warpcast about it, honestly, because I'm an old school Martin Luther King Jr. pacifist, like muscular peace person. Like, I think the only way we solve this is with aggressive avoidance of combat. You need
to pick up that dog.
No, he's unhappy both ways. Come here, buddy. What he's doing is every time I reach for him, he moves away.
I see.
He's trying to tell me I need to get up.
He's like, I need you to go walk me outside. Yeah.
He's like, Dad, you got that crazy look in your eye again. Stop talking about censorship.
Get in trouble for that.
Yep.
It's crazy to say that we live in America and we're saying we're afraid to post on this or that. We're afraid to talk about, or we know we're going to be censored. Like when we were kids growing up, it was everybody wanted to grow up and be the president and this great country we live in, and we home of the free, land of the brave. And now it's like, we say the pledge of allegiance every week when we go to school at our co-op, and then you're like, we sing the song and do the thing, but are we really living it out? And that's where doing things like getting involved with cryptocurrency, blockchain, trying to educate people, like, to me, that's where the fight is. That's where that's kind of the real revolution, civil war, the peaceful way
Right.
that we can do. The
Well,
things.
there's this misconception about peace, that it's weak, right? The strongest person on the debate stage would have been anybody who would have stood up and said, we fucked up after September 11th. We could have had the entire Islamic world aligned behind us, all the people who weren't extremist, unifying the world. If we would have just said, you know what? That was awful, but we're not going to make more awful of it. We're going to condemn this, but we're going to make peace. We're going to use this as an opportunity to correct blowback that we might otherwise have created in the
I
past.
didn't watch the debate because it was on family night, but I watched the highlights and they were frightening.
Oh yeah,
They were. It was a 3-minute, and it was Vivek and even DeSantis scared me.
dude.
They're like, we gotta kill them all, man. And then Vivek was like, we don't need to be involved in other. We need to worry about fixing this and that. We can support Israel monetarily, blah blah. But we shouldn't be sending our troops there, blah blah blah.
And that's the Overton window now. You're either for sending them infinite money
they were
or
like,
you're for war.
They were like, this dude, he's part of Hamas. And he's like,
right.
He's like, I
mean, only if Hamas's master plan is to overrun the money printer until we die of inflation. But
right. But that's where it is about money. It's not about these issues that they tell you the war is about. And the US, when the truth comes out, when we have things like Dragon Chain and Den.social and Eternalize This, documenting the real history, I mean, America is going to have to get humble with what we've done to the rest of the world through our dirty fiat, and
the nation state that is the United States is going to have to get humble. America is going to have to remember who it is.
Okay, I like that.
I don't think that they're one and the same, man. I think the nation state has become a parasite, and it's not who we are.
Yeah, I am for AM said all wars are banker wars. Yeah, true.
Yeah. It's amazing how readily they forget, right? These same people who were like starting to leverage the political point that we should defund the war effort in Ukraine because it was a wedge, and only because it was a wedge, are turning around and just like blank check Israel.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I wonder if Zelensky feels like the second wife who who got broken up with.
Well, I heard he's asking for loans now. I saw a video where he's like, just give us a line of credit, loan. We'll pay you back later.
Credit? Wait, but how do you give a line of credit in debt?
Yeah.
It's an IOU on money we're going to run off for you with a money printer that doesn't exist?
That doesn't exist. Yep.
I thought that was a very interesting thing with Trump. They were like, so are we need to send troops or whatever to, he's like, look, that war needs to end. People need to stop dying. I want people to stop dying, and I want to stop the war.
Right.
Most people
like, and literally, it was like, so you're pro-Russia? Like, he was like trying to. He didn't even go Trump on him. He was like, I'm pro-Russia as far as I don't want Russian people dying. The people, just like I don't want the Ukrainian people dying, because I want the war to stop. I don't want people to die. And they were like, oh, so you are pro-Russian. I mean, it was like a skit on Saturday Night Live. But, funny.
I'm pro-human life.
Well, I mean, and it's ultimately you know, analogous to what we might consider the debate, the grand debate in domestic politics too, around whether we should have small government and more free market systems, right? The voluntary exchange option, or whether we should have more force involved in the way that we go about our economics, right? This is very similar to me. This is like uh, the anti-force position is not a pro-evil position, right?
Yeah.
It's just anti-force.
Yeah, it's like now hippies are the most violent. It's,
Right. Well, one of my most favorite hippies was apparently, or someone who was apparently a hippie, and I didn't know about it, was this old German guy named Ludwig von Mises. Because he was always on about how there were two choices: free market exchange or violence.
I think
and there's no middle ground, right? It just feels like it if you abstract away the violence enough.
I literally, it's just like a 3 or 4 minute video of the highlights. That's what it said, highlight. And everybody basically said, look, we've got to get people into the war with Israel, and we have to kill all the people. We got to end it, and we got to get people in the war in Ukraine because we got to beat Russia back, and because when we go to war with China, we got to be ready. What?
I mean, when
I couldn't
people
believe what I was hearing. It was like scripted joke.
When people talk in these debates, you have to remember that, like, what's the point of doing these debates, right? It's to get elected. So everything they say is just finding more reasons for you to want to elect them, right?
And
So
most
if
of
you're
it
like,
is scripted.
yeah. And if you're like, hey, everything's scary, everything's awful, but I'll take care of you babies, then that's like the easier way to get elected than be like, everything's fine and great. And you should ride out this high with me. Let's all smoke a joint and relax. Like, that's not how people get elected.
Right. It's the H.L. Mencken quote, right? The whole point of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed and clamorous to be led to safety by menacing it with an endless series of hobgoblins, all of them imaginary.
Philip said in the chat that their side has picked Nikki Haley, and I kind of agree. Just from like I never really thought of her, or she wasn't really not even one of the ones. It was like DeSantis, and then Vivek. A lot of people are like, this dude makes a lot of sense, and she wasn't even like on the talk show circuits or anything. And the last 2 weeks, I've gotten texts from her and emails and just she is the one that they're pushing. So
I think the real racket is politicians, right? Voting is kind of the racket in reality. Like picking one and getting behind it is kind of the thing destroying our liberty.
Yeah, I still think we should start with a fight to the death, and then if you win that, then you get to run. But with that, I
want
gotta
a lottery, man. Plutocracy.
That'd be even better. A little less violence. But with that, I actually gotta head out. So you guys have fun. Keep talking fun current events, and I'll see everybody next week.
Thanks, John. I actually like Sean's really helped me with the mindset of, call it what it is. Their government, it's government school. It's not public school. They are servants. So they should be contracted with us. And if they don't do a good job, they should be fired.
Right, but
they
they're
are
not
not leaders. They are not, above us, officials. They're not officials. They're not leaders. They're public servants, and they should be contracted. And if they fail their contract, then they need to be fired.
Right. So that would be great, except for that servant language is just repurposing the servant leader book from the 90s or 80s or whenever that came out to put a fluffy, friendly veneer over one of the managerial classes strategies to get people to do what they want them to do. Right. It's ultimately still the managerial class running it. These people don't think of themselves as servants so much as they think of themselves as benevolent rulers.
Oh, I know.
Exactly. That's why you got to knock them down, man.
Yeah, we need to beat the ruler out of it.
It never hit me until Robert Beatles, who I respect, a lot, I think he's on the cutting edge of what's going on. And he was talking about someone that he didn't like, didn't respect, and he called them official. And I was like, I was like, wait a minute. Why did they stop being called public servants? When you change the verbiage, and I've talked about this, the Democrat people everyone says Democratic.
You caught that, yeah.
And it's just a small thing. It's the Democratic, the Republican had this many votes. The Democratic vote, they lost, in Congress, the Democratic side. It just, your brain hears that, your subconscious hears that, and someone else caught it, and they said something. They called them Democrat, and they're like, please say. They said use the term Democratic. That's grammarly correct. You have to say Democratic.
Grammarly.
And the guy's like, no, I'm not going to say you're Democrat. Democrat. He's like, they literally like went after him for it.
Right, and you can see the left puppet and the right puppet being shaken by the hand right there too, can't you? Because like in reality, arguing semantics over a word that probably means something that we should stop arguing about because ultimately pure democracy is what kills off countries, right? Like, it turns into one of my favorite quotes was by Nick Land. He called it a symbiotic relationship between polity and the politicians, where it's an escalating form of cannibalism that devolves into sort of hooting and prancing, and the only alternative to shouting at the top of your lungs is being eaten.
I watched this video, which I thought was hilarious, but like we think the United Kingdom and all these other places they're the same as the United States. They're free. We've forgotten how radical our country was when we started it. And this woman, these are super rich people. They're very posh. It's in Chelsea, a part of London, where all the super rich people live. And this woman bought this building for like her neighbor was buying. They were putting bids in, and he put in like 4.4 million, and then he went 4.5, and then she raised it to 4.6, and he like missed it. So she bought the house. He was pissed. This dude is like some South African, whatever, rich dude. And so she buys this building. It's like disgusting. It's all like fully crap and breaking down. And she wants to renovate it. First off, she has to switch it because it was an office building.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of these, because in London, these places have been around for
Right. I mean, and you want to talk about red tape? It's not red tape over there. It's like red.
It's because
steel wire.
Democracy. This is democracy. Impossible. So she wants to have it switch from zoning basically to where she can make it a residential home, because she can't make it what she wants.
Right. So good luck raising millions of dollars for your political campaign that may or may not succeed.
So anyway, she goes
20 years from now, you can build your house.
She puts the request through, and all of her neighbors have to approve it because of the noise that they're in construction. So she paid all this money, and her neighbor, who hates her now, said, no.
Right.
So she goes round and round. She talks to people, blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, this guy she wants to put like a swimming pool in the basement. She wants a double basement. I mean, this is like,
it sounds awesome.
These are all like mega rich people, right?
Right.
And
but envy plays between mega, like there's envy in the mega rich too, right?
But this guy did that. He bought that. He bought it as an office building. He converted it to the house, and then he and he basically said, it's like, hey, she shouldn't. That's not an argument. Just because I did, she could do it. I don't want to have 6 months of noise and blah blah. So she has to go around, and she spent, I think it was like $500,000 so far on just legal fees, and she gets the approval right? She's able to go through something else. She gets the approval to convert it. He finds out, and he goes and he has a judge reverse it.
Right. You probably filed a suit with whatever the equivalent of their Fish and Wildlife office is, right?
But
The same thing that can prevent rocket launches here can prevent construction.
So
in
basically, she
communities
has
too.
no power. It's her property. But the majority, like basically, the government has to say yes, and then the majority of these people have to say yes.
Right. Exactly.
It's for her to do something with her own property. It's like, I mean, we have
in a society ruled by passive violence, the strong take by force and the weak take by petition.
Very, very, very interesting.
We have some breaking news.
So you know what she did? She painted her house white with red stripes.
Nice.
Paint, right? But the last stripe, she stopped it before it went all the way up.
So it didn't meet the requirements of the definition, the band striping?
Just to piss off people with OCD, which are so many of the rich people. They're like, it's so ugly. And why didn't they finish that last stripe? And that's like the one little thing that she can do. And everyone, and there's like all these, ultra millionaires. They're just so angry.
Well, the problem is they're going to turn around and use that as an argument for why they need tighter control over what people are allowed to do with their own property.
Yeah.
Right. It's a vicious cycle where people do things sort of aggressively retaliatory when they're told they can't do something. They do something that pisses everybody off, and what that serves as is a guidepost for where the regulators go next in terms of things they disallow. Now there's going to be just wait, give it 5 years. There'll be a public comment period where you have to ask your entire neighborhood to approve your color choice before you're allowed to paint your house.
It's like the worst homeowners association.
Right. This is why I care about permissionless innovation, because if you take the time to ask everybody if it's okay if we do a thing, you're going to get the answer no. Yeah. Because it's basically begging for it. Like people are rivalrous, man. If you give people a chance to gum up the works with their opinion, they will guaranteed do it.
Or they're petty, like just like they could not like something that is
right.
Like
the one guy who already had it didn't want anybody else to, and the other people who didn't have it and probably couldn't afford it didn't want another person to leave their strata behind. It's all a function of ultimately envy.
Democracy is like a mean girl clique, basically.
Right. Well, it's a mean girl clique where the mean girls can get together and vote and send men with guns to enforce their will. Right? Because ultimately she couldn't just build it. If she built it, regardless, they would have sent police. And if she would have resisted and tried to continue anyway, they would have shot her to death. Right? That's the threat of force at the base of every seemingly friendly zoning regulation.
It's that's Lisa talks about that. How we don't really have a free country, and it's not yours. Like if you don't pay the taxes on your $200,000 house, if you get behind,
Sean, if you don't get a new tag on your $5,000 car, they come take it from you.
Unless you get your tags in Vermont, I hear. I heard about this from somebody who will remain nameless until he decides to come forward with it on the show, because I've invited him on to talk about it.
Okay.
Apparently they, at least when he re-registered for the first time in 5 years, 2 years ago when he got a new car, he got his plates in Vermont, and they don't have a sticker rule to check. There's no way to check by sight that this thing is current on Texas. So you can get a Vermont tag and just ride around with it. And apparently they also allow you to just attest without any proof that you're in state and you want to register your car there.
You're still going to get pulled over by cops all the time.
Well, he's conscious of it, but so far has done this for the better part of 5 or 6 years without incident.
So the breaking news is that in Italy, Italian intelligence, coup d'etat of America. I don't know that this is in Italy. Italian intelligence, along with U.S. sworn testimony, confirms the 2020 U.S. presidential election was stolen from Trump. Satellites being controlled from Italy added votes to Biden to defeat Trump. Joe Biden is not the lawful U.S. president. Proof hidden
Really?
from you. 2 affidavits from Italian citizens. An audio from Larry Johnson, CIA, State Department.
Really? If that's true, that makes sense with respect to something weird that I saw yesterday. I use this flight tracker app, and sometimes they have trending flights that I just poke into and check out. I was like, that's an interesting call sign. What's Titan 25? And if you look up Titan 25 Air Force, you will meet face to face one of the 4 modified Boeing 747s that they built to survive, or for U.S. command structures to survive a nuclear attack.
The D-Day, which I had heard last
The
week.
Doomsday plane was in
They
the
were-
air over Italy yesterday.
Oh, over Italy.
Yeah, it was like
yesterday.
off the coast of it was probably within VFR distance of Rome when they shut off the transponders.
Interesting, because last week, there was a video that came out where this guy was like visibly shaken because he was following flights, whatever.
Mhm.
And he said that they were flying VIP planes into Cheyenne Mountain. I think was it on Friday? I can't remember what day that was on. Maybe it was Thursday. I can't remember what day that was on.
Lisa, you're lagging really bad.
Oh, shocker.
As soon as you started talking,
Oh, weird.
very weird about this. Yeah, there's like a delay.
Hi, 3-letter agencies.
Now you said it. That long.
Nice.
I don't know what else to do. It's so weird. The world is so
1001,
weird.
1002, 1003.
But there's so many
1000.
unprecedented.
So you got about a 3.5 second delay.
What happens about that? Like if it's proven now, and it's comes out, all the decisions are reversed. I mean, so does that mean he won? So that was technically his second term. He can't run again because the way the law reads, from as far as I know, he's not allowed to run.
This would be unprecedented.
Yeah, everything is unprecedented.
Which sounds like a fun play on words for a movie about it, right?
Yeah.
Unprecedented.
I kept saying
Unprecedented. I like unprecedented.
When he got arrested, like his Secret Service has to go in jail with him. They had to, but that's against the law for other people to go into your cell. But they're the law, and they have to follow him at all times. So they would have to be arrested with him. They would have to go in the cell with him, and we're like, this is so weird. It's there's nothing like this has ever happened before. So all this stuff is unprecedented. But that would be a crazy thing if it's like legally you can't run again because
that would be I think pretty untenable. I don't think that you would have because that would be something that would ultimately get litigated up to the high court, right?
Which is kind of
what's happening.
That's what
if they concluded that he actually won and therefore was disqualified from running again, even though he never was sworn in.
See, that's why
the swearing in has legal
that's the lawyer
significance.
shit. They're right. Okay.
Yeah, but that swearing in was fake anyway. So,
but then they would have to swear him in. So let's say they swear him in March.
Well, swearing somebody in requires them
when
to take
they
an
used
oath,
to,
right?
We used to swear in the president in March.
Well, let's say it's March, and then they're like, "When you're sworn in, you're the president. You can't."
Well, he can preserve his right to keep going by simply refusing to speak when asked to swear.
He could,
right? If they try to swear him in post talk or something like that, all he has to do is keep. I mean, granted, politicians, even the ones we like, have a hard time keeping their damn mouths shut. I'm pretty sure that that there's something ironic about the idea of Trump.
But wouldn't there have to be a new vote? Because it wouldn't just assume that Trump won. It just says that Biden didn't because
But we
they
don't
were
get-
adding.
Well, I mean,
two-party
and
race.
we've got what we got too. A lot of U.S. process, a lot of court processes work on something that I will call, in scare quotes, harmless error, or like under erasure harmless error, because the legal doctrine you would apply would be called that, even though we would not call that what would be call that harmless in the traditional sense of the word, right? If things continue as if it happened the other way, right? And the whole thing didn't come falling apart shambles at a procedural level, like, you know, we didn't trigger a black hole to rip open in the middle of the Capitol lawn, right? Like when they swore him in on the Capitol Mall, they they didn't trigger a black hole. So it went forward, right? And he's been presumptively governing as the president for the last, almost interminable 4 years. And, harmless error, right? You can't say that he wasn't the president because he acted as it. And you can't say that Trump was because somebody else was acting as it. And regardless of how it actually came out, that certification vote that didn't get disrupted
Right.
was the last step before the swearing in that happened, and all the procedures were followed. Right. So even though he was elected, he was not properly sworn in. Therefore,
Unless you find out
any
those people
interpretation
were
of it
in
that
on it.
says any interpretation of it that says he can't run again because he technically won would be, by any reasonable member of the court, which luckily we have plenty of those.
But that seems to be
laughed out of the room.
The modus operandi now is that you do what you want to make your side win, and then
I don't know if it's that anymore.
The courts figure it out.
I feel like it's not even that anymore. I feel like the people on the other side of this just have like terrible cognitive dissonance that they need to square with, right? And they need to go back and remember, all the Russiagate bullshit that was actually all based on a Gary Gensler signed check to somebody who wrote that for Clinton, right? And they bought into that shit because Rachel Maddow said it over and over again. And in reality, what they needed to figure out was that the people didn't want them in there because they weren't governing the way that this republic's people wanted.
I think hopefully he learns a lesson. I have always thought that he tried to play ball enough, like why he didn't pardon.
I think he did that because he didn't want to get assassinated.
Assange and Snowden was just because he didn't want to. He was like, hey guys, for those of you that are good in the three-letter agencies they're good FBI agents, they're good, I'm on your side, I'm on the side of law and order, but
No, I think it was more like he didn't want to get Kennedy'd.
I think now he would be
they'd have shot him if he'd have freed Assange. Guaranteed.
You think?
Oh, absolutely.
Did the FBI? They killed Martin Luther King.
Yeah,
their family sued him in court, and
the FBI and probably the Secret Service.
See, that's enough, man. That's when you end your government. It should have ended there.
Well, it probably should have ended way before that. Actually,
a lot of things should have ended then.
We lost control of this little gravy train in the 1910s, maybe earlier.
1871.
Yeah, probably 1871. Mm-hmm. Certainly, we never should have gotten past who was before World War I starter, Fed starter, tax amendment signer.
Tom Hanks.
No.
That's it, but that's a Family Guy reference.
Wilson? Was it Wilson? Woodrow Wilson? That gave us all that bullshit?
Yeah, he was the New Deal and everything.
It would have been. Well, I have some quotes by the guy. Let's see. 1910. I'm just going to look at 1916 president. Nope. Woodrow Wilson. Yep, I was right. Yeah, that asshole was largely behind it. I mean, he was the stuffed suit that the people really behind it sent out to win the day.
There's a term that I've heard people start using that are running for office, and it's like a must to me just to listen. It's like, I'm a constitutionalist. There you go. That's all. Okay.
What does that even mean?
Huh?
What does that even mean?
You
These
believe-
people do not have the ability to define it, I bet.
You
If somebody
believe
followed up with, what does that even mean?
you believe in everything that the
They
US
chew their
Constitution
tongue
right
tripping
there
over
are,
the words, man.
this, that. And I always thought it was weird that the people who swear an oath to the Constitution they haven't read it. Like every cop has to do it. Every person that goes into the military. I literally think that they should have to memorize it. Should get like a test.
Right. Like people
notes.
who go into it should have to go to at least 1 year of law school so that they learn about precedent too.
That's
law
so
school.
much more. That's so much more than I think. They should just read it.
Well, if you just read the words though, you don't know what any of them are interpreted to mean. It doesn't really help you.
So study Latin.
Well, I mean, studying Latin doesn't help either, right? Like the key point that you have to know is that the law is based on whatever the last decision about this particular line of the law was.
Mm.
And if you want to understand really why it is the way that it is now, then you have to read the whole history of it back to when they first made a case about it, and understand why they evolved it the way they did, or why they made distinctions where they did. It's it would take about 6 months of good reading, I think, to be prepared to understand the origin of the U.S. Constitution with respect to the way the laws are made.
Even if our schools or we taught our children as much as people that come over and legally migrate to America and go through citizenship class or to get their citizenship paperwork or whatever, that would be a huge improvement.
Well, I mean, and even like, making those things reasonably, systematic, I guess, would probably be a step forward. Like right now, you first have to check the list of things you're allowed to come into the country for before you can even apply, right? Because if the list doesn't include your profession, then you're not getting in.
Most anarchists talk about Lisa mentioned the Pledge of Allegiance, that it's terrible, it's awful, it's evil. It is weird that someone who is...
I think it's awful that they have it. I think it's awful to make kids say it in schools every morning.
Well, I mean, I understand it. I'm not against it, but like some moron who they're all morons who eats paste and
right,
in kindergarten.
Right, ask a kindergartner to define the word allegiance.
Define allegiance.
Yeah.
I pledge my allegiance to
what?
What does this flag stand for?
Right.
Why
do we pledge to the flag?
It is a little bit odd. It is, indoctrinating. It should be a bigger deal. Like when you do that, you should know what it means, and it should be like a really big deal to you. Like that's what I'm talking about. Is like you become a police officer.
Well, it's an early part of the conditioning to make words
meaningless. If they're just words, they don't mean anything.
Right. It's taking something that ought to be a solemn vow and turning it into dogma. You should only ever be allowed to say it once, and you should be disallowed to say it again if you get it wrong. Like if you want to do the pledge properly, then it ought to be a thing that you perform in the same way that mitzvahs happen for people of the Jewish religion coming of age, right? You have to stand up and speak it, and if you speak it wrong, you fail and have to try again. But before you get to do that, you have to understand what it means.
Is it just me, or did y'all watch the debate?
I couldn't stomach.
It was family and I saw it, but I want to watch it. But I watched that highlight, and not one person said Israel. Not one person said Prime Minister. they all said BB. Every single one of them.
Weird.
That I thought was weird. Yeah, but in now the next day I think about it, they really are, I think, trying to promote. Hey, that's our bro. That's
Well,
fan.
also, what's the average age of most of the candidates?
It's pretty low.
Right? Pretty low?
Yeah, it's pretty.
We've got, I know 2 of them are relatively young, but I'm not sure the rest of the field is all that young.
Santa's isn't old. Vivek's not old.
Right. But
Haley's not old. Christie, I don't know. And
Christie's just Nosferatu. He's like
the
sort of like
bald
Dick
guy.
Cheney. He rolled out
bald
of the
guy,
crypt somewhere.
and this may be racist, but he's black, so he could be any age. The age. If you're black, you have good skin.
Yeah, you're fortunate to have the skin.
You are fortunate, yeah.
Well, but there are other trade-offs. So, obviously.
So
in any case, other news.
Younger than ever.
He's to me very alarming because he says most of the right things most of the time.
Who?
Vivek.
Yeah.
And then sometimes he says something that just makes me go, "What the fuck? Do you believe any of the other stuff you say right most of the time?" That guy is, I guarantee you, Republican Obama. If he gets elected, he will do none of the things that everyone's excited about him doing.
But he says radical shit. Like
he says radical shit.
He's gonna end 3-letter agencies.
Right, which is sort of like saying hope and change, right? It's
Trump
you ask him how, he doesn't know.
Trump didn't build the wall. He didn't put
but
Hillary
Biden
in jail.
did.
Yeah, but he started. But this is like the day he won. He congratulated Hillary and changed it. He was like, "She's a good American. She's a good person."
Right.
I was like,
who said this?
It's easy to be gracious when you're a winner.
When he won, yeah, he did like instant.
He did not.
Instant.
He was still calling her names until he used Crooked Joe. He would call her Crooked Hillary up until he started calling him Crooked Joe.
No, when he won, he flipped and he never put her in jail and never came up.
Yeah, he did. She's already gone. She's shot. She left in 2016. There's mugshots of her in 2017.
She literally just made a statement last week about Trump and Hitler. She said Hitler was duly elected. Remember that this November.
Really? Are we not past the Hitler? It's so silly that they think anybody buys into this crap anymore, right? Nobody's sitting here thinking anybody getting elected in the United States is Hitler, literally, right? Because literal Hitler is literal Hitler, and that's it. And until we start uncovering the concentration camps where millions of an ethnic group were slaughtered under torturous conditions and
you mean the
Holocaust is not
about Canada?
Are you talking about
not happening.
Arizona last night?
They don't have Sonder commandos, right? They don't have other immigrants furnishing or shoveling the dead
body
ones
parts
into the furnace,
in Phoenix,
right?
in Arizona. Huge bio place busted yesterday with severed heads and limbs, and they were selling organs, and they were sewing little children's heads and put it on adult bodies and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yikes. That sounds
yesterday in Arizona.
Sounds like that sounds extraordinary. I would need a lot of proof that wasn't done with a GPT bot, because that sounds like something that I can't see any American doing, regardless of their political stripe.
Yeah, what's the point of that besides evil?
Yes,
I understand selling organs, but
these people are sick.
That's just weird.
I don't know, man.
I thought you were talking about Canada and all.
No, I'm literally talking about how we
bodies they unearthed and all this stuff.
Literally talking about how we should stop using Hitler as a way to describe anybody until we start having blitzkrieg occur and whole ethnic groups disappearing into train cars, right? Like it's not happening here. Yeah, maybe there's some bad shit, but it hasn't gotten to Hitler bad. It hasn't gotten to Hitler bad since Hitler.
I
Yeah, Hitler's
disagree.
Hitler. Hitler's Hitler. It is different.
It
It's
never stopped.
it cheapens the word. It does. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it was rape. Oh my God, it's terrible. Oh, it was date rape. Well, you got a meal. You know, I mean,
Right.
it's not saying it's good, but you know,
It's not the same level of reprehensible to be the
Yeah.
person who does
I told
that,
Lisa this.
even though it's still
Tuesday,
reprehensible. We can have
the
it's the
worst
fallacy
thing.
of the gray.
The worst thing I think Trump did is say fake news. To coin the term, because it's a lie.
He didn't.
If
He
you
didn't coin it.
But if you just say, hey, this paper lied, they printed a lie, this story is a lie, it's much more hard hitting than that's fake news. Like, ha ha ha, it's just
Well,
changing words for things and making up word, because it really does lessen the impact.
so the funny thing is the inventor of the modern rendition of fake news, because actually it's been used throughout history, but the modern recycler of it was one of the very, very first like proto disinformation specialist companies. Like the first public-private partnership firm was also the inventor of that, right? Like it was somebody who's still pretty inert in that, if I recall correctly. I don't have the details in front of me, but if you were to Google that and look for the true whoever said it, you will find the name of a project that was run by people who were pushing a very counter-Trump, pro present day woke agenda. The same people that came up with the phrase free speech is not the same, or free reach isn't free speech, or whatever. The same group.
Ian perhaps makes a good point. I think there is a Holocaust with missing children. Every country, it seems to have a ridiculous amount of missing children. You know, it's not adults, it's not ethnic, it's all kids. They're just gone.
There is a huge problem with indigenous women missing as well, that isn't reported.
But that's not as big as the kids. Kids are worldwide.
Well, I mean, and at the same time, they're not really being shoveled into furnaces. So
the things you can that very
it's hard to even say
about them. You know, the government going through the
maybe worse.
Yeah.
They're tortured first for.
Well, I mean, if you show me
pleasure.
If you show me that kids are being either put in a work camp or being put in,
did you see Hunter's laptop
and
see what he's doing to him?
They've mentally manipulated other kids to shovel their own people into their own other children into the furnace and lead them into the gas chambers. Then you'll have the literal Holocaust, right? Like the level of inhumanity of that was, even though the global situation with missing children is terrible,
it's like Stalin.
It's a cut above.
Ukraine. I always have a real soft spot for Ukraine.
I don't know.
There's nothing like Hitler.
Like I don't know how you.
Stalin made Ukraine was the breadbasket. If they say it's a breadbasket of Europe, it was literally the breadbasket of the Soviet Union.
Right.
It fed everybody, and the people in Ukraine starved to death by the hundreds of thousands. He killed millions. It was almost complete genocide, and they literally grew the food.
Oh, right, and they took it from them
to death, and then gave it to the soldiers. It was
it was pretty brutal.
Thing. Yeah.
And Stalin is probably the closest example in a modern since Hitler of someone that approached it as bad.
Excuse me. Sorry. Oh,
right? But even then, like there weren't crazy medical experiments going on in the gulags. They were just work camps. They didn't have death camps and crazy medical experiment camp. right? And they didn't make people
Yes,
who,
there were.
who
They
got
were
sent to the
separate.
gulags, facilitate the shovels of people into the furnaces or the gas chambers. Whatever.
They were
It just wasn't
separating
quite
mothers and
got that
babies
level.
and doing tests on psychological and pain, torture tests, all kinds of things. All of that was going on.
Well, I mean,
and then the evil never stopped. It just spread all over the world.
my point is that we all kind of facilitate the fallacy of the gray, right? If you say, the world isn't black and white, it's in shades of gray, it's very easy to look at gray as one color, right? And the critique back is, you make fun of my black and white worldview, but you want to replace it with a single color. Gray is a gradient, all the way from barely intelligible gray all the way up to almost black. And then there's black and white on either side, right? There's a lot of in between. Hitler's on the far black side, and we tend to make politics go like this, and we smash that gray into a thin little line.
I think just what you're really saying is not on the scale. There hasn't been anything like not just on that scale,
right? And we've made it impossible to understand what we're saying when we say that. Like, we're not even at fault for not really getting it.
Yeah. It's someone that's been there and seen it and all. It's chilling. But
yep.
Okay, John talking about Dave and Buster's. The Theo Vaughn interview with.
Oh shit! Are we at time? We're almost at time.
Oh yeah, let me show you real quick. Theo Vaughn was talking about because Tucker Carlson was talking about Katrina in Louisiana and how bad it was, how it was literally like Mad Max. It was terrible. He said he saw cops looting, but Theo Vaughn's like, yeah. He said, and they were talking about how we as people will de-evolve into chaos in quick. And he was like, yeah, one time I was at Dave and Buster's and the electricity went off and everyone just started beating the crap out of each other. And I was screaming. He's like, it was instant. And I was like, that's just weird. But yeah, I guess we got to hurry up.
Humans are weird.
They are. There's definitely a side of good and evil.
Sean, you didn't get to do a wrap up on the earlier session. Do you want to?
I got a show in 2 hours.
Okay.
I got a show in 2 hours. Check out me and Lisa on Tuesday.
Cool.
Half on her show or on her channel, half on mine. Usually it's at 4 Central, 5 Eastern. Mm-hmm. Starts over on her channel. This week we went a little late, but it's usually at that time. And free Assange, happy New Year, or not New Year, Thanksgiving. I don't know. Love y'all.
Or New Year. Yep. New fiscal year. Happy new fiscal year to everyone. I had mentioned earlier, I had a great interview with Reggie in a roundtable with Jonathan Olson, a patent attorney, and Bill Agner. That'll be going live on the Very Dow YouTube channel later today and this evening. So join me in the live chat there. Greg, what's going on with you?
I will just I'll just have to say that it's really hard to watch dogs by yourself. Because that's pretty much been what's going on here. Like, as this show's been going on, you guys have no idea of the puppy mayhem that has been going on around me. Can't do that. But really, I've been dead center focused on this thing that I can't talk about yet. I'm super excited about. But
you said like a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, but definitely follow me at Design Heretic on Warpcast if you want to hear about it, because that's where we're going to talk about it. Also at Rivet, no underscores on Warpcast.
Have you checked out Pilled?
Have
you checked out Pilled?
Nope, not yet.
Pilled.net.
Yeah, Pilled.net. It's Beatles social media. It's very, very cool. Very good.